Well, good afternoon. My name's Eric Hall. I'm here in Northeast Indiana and just recording, giving an overview of my final project for this class. As I've been thinking about the project and working on, I've been thinking of a Venn diagram. And if you're not into math or statistics, you may not know what a Venn diagram. A Venn diagram is essentially just a graph that has overlapping circles and usually highlights this area where two or three, in my case, circles overlap, and that central area where all three of them are brought together. And so, if you can picture that Venn diagram, that's a good understanding of where I'm going with my final project. So, for my final project, I've been thinking about both where these things overlap and where they don't overlap. So, again, think of a Venn diagram, certain areas overlap and then certain of them don't. And in particular for this class, I've been thinking about three different circles, if you will. So circle number one, I've been labeling therapeutic counseling or maybe professional counseling, but trying to give it a name to really differentiate it from pastoral care or pastoral counseling. So circle number one is therapeutic counseling, a professional counselor. Circle number two is pastoral care or pastoral direction or pastoral counseling or counsel without the ing. So that pastoral circle is circle number two. And then circle number three is community or life lived with friends in a transparent, authentic community, a place where the one another's of Scripture can be lived out. So for my final project, I've just been talking about where do these all three overlap? How are they related? How are they the same? And yet also, where do they not overlap? And are there times where pastoral care and pastoral counseling has tried to become too much like therapeutic counseling and to overtake some of the circle that should have? Or is there times where therapeutic counseling, especially by a Christian, has tried to move into too far into the pastoral side and lost its distinctive? Or is there a time where both of them have replaced or taken care of what should be community and life lived in community? And so, as we are talking about this project, really it's become personal to me because I've found that all three of those circles have been really necessary in my own life. I remember when I was at my office, I work at the denominational level for a small denomination here, and I get the job of meeting with and traveling to churches and preaching and working with the pastors and encouraging them and those kind of things. And I was at our office, and I remember just talking to our office administrative assistant, one of them, who was getting married, and somehow I said something about the counselor that my wife and I see, and I remember her having this expression of surprise, like, "Wait, you have a counselor?" And to just be able to tell her how important counseling, therapeutic counseling, has been for my wife and I to deal with some of our issues, and that so therapeutic counseling has played a really big role in our life. So has pastoral direction, pastoral mentors, spiritual directors in my own life who I can share with, who can challenge me, who can lean into me. And then if you were to ask me, where my church is, I would tell you about this specific gathering that I go to on Sunday morning. But if you really wanted to know where God's being real to me, where I'm growing, I would tell you about a group of men that I meet with every Monday morning. I would tell you with some couples that I meet with on Friday night. I would say that's my community. That's my church. I said, that's where God is made real. That's where I grow. That's where I'm challenged. And yes, I attend a Sunday morning gathering. I listen to a sermon. I participate in corporate worship. I tithe. But yet, my church is those men on Monday morning. My church is that couple on Friday night. And so I've just found in my own life all three of those to be necessary. But I've also seen times where I feel like it's been easy to try to get one circle to move too much to the others. And we've just been talking about that. And so that's really the gist of my project. Some of the learning that I've walked into is I was talking to a friend of mine who's a chaplain for the local hospital chain, Parkview Hospitals here in Northeast Indiana. And he's a full-time chaplain. And he turned me on to this study that was done by a journal called the Journal of Palliative Medicine. And it was simple, this study done in 2013, 2014, they sent a survey to those who had lost a loved one in the past 6 to 24 months. So they sent the survey to them and asked them, what has been helpful? How have you found care? What has worked and what hasn't? The question said, what sources of bereavement support are perceived helpful by bereaved people, and why? What is perceived as helpful? And then they subtitle empirical evidence for the compassionate communities approach. And what they found was that people were most dissatisfied with what they called professional counseling. They had three forms of counseling, three forms of support, not counseling. Informal, which would be like a funeral director. They would put pastors in that care. They would put informal support, community support, and then professional support. So those are the three areas they saw of support. And people said they were most dissatisfied with professional support, especially when that professional support was isolated. When that support was isolated without a community support or even informal support, the sense of dissatisfaction with that professional bereavement support, professional counseling, their dissatisfaction went much, much higher. But when that professional support was coupled with a community and informal part, then the levels of dissatisfaction went down quite a bit. And I just found it fascinating that there's this empirical study that says we need more than just a counselor. We need a counselor, we need a pastor, we need therapeutic counseling, we need pastoral counseling, but we also need life lived in community. And sure, there's times when one is more focused and more needed than the other. If you're suffering from a traumatic abuse, of course we need to talk to a professional. But one without the other frequently leaves us dissatisfied. And that's really the gist of my final project. Thanks.